Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Health Made Easy. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Jones, and today we are going to be talking about what are the best sources of carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates have been demonized, over the last 15 or 20 years, or certainly since the inception of the Atkins diet, but this has been going on for a very long time. Ketogenic diet is nothing new. It goes back 100 years, originally designed to eliminate and get in as a treatment for epilepsy. Most people don't know that, but that is very true. You can look that up. And it does work quite well for that, but I'm not here to demonize keto or the high protein diet or any sort of like low carb anything. What I am here to do today is tell you what are the best sources of carbohydrates, because, even from when we were kids, we learned about carbohydrates as an essential component, of our diet. In fact, there are many of sort of our main nutrients, in our body needs come from them, but also with fats and proteins as well. I mean, you need them all. But what carbohydrates are, in simple terms, they are little biomolecules consisting of carbons, hydrogens, and oxygen atoms, and they provide the energy that our body needs to work optimally, or at least they work on certain pathways for energy production. Now, when you eat a food that is rich in carbohydrates, your body breaks it down into glucose, which is the primary fuel source that circulates around our blood and also serves as fuel for our brain and our liver and our muscles, and again, there's other ways to do it, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about carbohydrates today. So the function of the carbs are very important, and they supply the body with energy, of course, but they form a key part of some connective tissues. The fiber content in carbohydrates help lower blood cholesterol. They also help retain protein so that it can be used to repair and rebuild our bodies. It also helps prevent degradation of our skeletal muscles. So what are some of the best sources? Well, you can get carbohydrates from processed foods, but also unprocessed foods. And processed and refined carbs essentially offer little to zero nutritional value. And the best sources are whole and unprocessed foods that are usually super nutritious and highly healthy. So, the human body cannot produce carbohydrates, so you have to ingest them, through your diet. So you've got simple carbohydrates, which are things like oranges, apples, bananas, pineapple, berries, sweet potatoes, even milk as well. Starchy carbohydrates, which are your best sources, are going to be your grain breads. I like things like Ezekiel bread is a great one. Some whole grains, potatoes, beans, and even some nuts. And then you have complex carbohydrates. Best sources, peas, barley, beans, wild rice, oats, brown rice. There's even a black rice, which is great. These form of carbohydrates contain fiber and starches, and they tend not to spike the blood sugar as quickly as just simple or just starchy carbs. So they also help support, sort of those minimal blood sugar levels from there. So, side note, if you are wanting to burn fat for energy, you have got to control your blood sugar. And you do that by eating correctly, proper food combining, so that when you do consume any kind of food, you get minimal elevation and minimal spikes in your blood sugar, and you keep it relatively stable, because you don't want to see insulin come into play, because when insulin is present, you cannot burn fat for energy. Now, back to it. Fibrous carbohydrates, which is something lots of folks don't really talk about, but you want to have some carbs definitely in there, and probably a good amount of your carbs as these complex and fibrous carbohydrates. So the best sources of fibrous ones are carrots, pumpkin, broccoli, some beans, squash, cucumber, and, all of these are loaded, with good carbohydrates. Now, the bad or unhealthy carbohydrates are found in things like white bread, candies, chocolates, sugar drinks, ice cream, pastries, and other processed foods. These food items contain easily digested carbohydrates that may and most likely will interfere with any weight loss goals that you might have or sustaining a proper weight. But also, when sugar gets out of control, of course, that's going to lead to, some people having chronic health problems. And for some people, it's going to be things like diabetes, maybe it's heart disease. So you just really have to know yourself for sure. So if you want to reduce the intake of carbs and avoid them completely, it's possible, but I don't know that that's necessarily the best thing in the world for every single person to do. And it may be good as a short-term strategy, but in the long run, you can add some healthy carbohydrates to your diet. Now, how do you do that? So you can start your day with some whole grains, and oftentimes I will do this, okay? I'll have like a hot cereal of like sort of these old-fashioned, organic oats. Definitely not instant oatmeal because they kind of remove all the fiber and everything out of them, and it just spikes your blood sugar. And you can do it that way. What I will do with that is I will certainly have a protein source and a fat source with it. I'll food combine so that my blood sugar stays nice and level. You can have a whole grain bread or like an Ezekiel bread with your lunch. Again, you just want to make sure that you manage the proper amount of carbohydrates with the proper amount of protein and fats that you're eating. So you can do it that way. You want to go for things like whole fruit instead of fruit juice because, again, juice eliminates the fiber content, which makes your blood sugar spike that much faster. For some people, this works really good. You can add beans to the diet, rather than filling up on potatoes. But one of the things about beans and nuts and seeds is that if you want to get the best out of them, you want to prepare them properly, meaning you soak them overnight. There's several other methods of preparing beans correctly and seeds and nuts so that you don't get some of the negative effects that come with them, or you basically eliminate all of the negative effects of them. So a simple rule of thumb is this: just eat whole foods. That's a really easy way to look at it, and look for the best sources of carbohydrates. Avoid processed, and refined carbs. It just makes sense. So what are the 1, 2, 3 things? Eat whole foods, avoid processed and refined carbs, and just try to eat the best sources that you possibly can. So, hope this helped you out. It's Dr. Jason Jones signing out, and we will see you guys on the next podcast. See you later. Bye-bye.